The aim of this video is to demonstrate how to use Comet Disaster to farm kill bonus as part of item leveling. Now, like with my previous Land Decimator and Murmur of Rage videos, if you don't want to worry about the intricacies of how item leveling works and you just want to use one method the entire time, this will work for that. Also, like with those methods, I'm going to assume you already have all your subclasses mastered on your attacking units, because you will want the extra stats from doing so. However, for support units, I will try to cover which subclasses and how many stars in them are needed for various abilities. Now, the setups I'm going to demonstrate will work on 20-star enemy strength in high-rank items, and as part of them, I'm going to use I've already got this same curry active, a Sunshine Rod curry, which has a Sunshine Rod as the main ingredient, with the effect of giving 50% star resistance, and the reason for that I'll explain later. And it also has 100 thimbles in it, though other weapons will work, for 100% critical rate. Though mostly we're going to be in revenge mode, so we'll have 100% critical anyway. And, well, basic idea of this: have a load of units with Comet Disaster, or in Usalia's case, Murmur of Rage, at least 5 of them, with weapons with the Revenge Booster Unique Innocent, which has the effect of giving 20% revenge gauge per map. So as long as we have at least 5 units with it, we can use 1 per map, keep circling between them, and we'll always have someone in revenge mode. Now, these weapons are obtained by defeating the overlords of rank 40 Netherworlds in Netherworld Research. All the units also have weapons with professionals on them for increased critical damage, movement gear, including an Axle gear with the Overclocker Unique Innocent for teleporting movement, and you get Axle gear by defeating normal Baal, and as daunting as that might sound, you can defeat normal Baal with an Usalia who's this strong. Like, normal Baal is actually not that hard. It's actually possible with a 10 million stats unit. And on top of that, the Asagis here have Firefighter, Cryophile, and Aeronaut, which also increase elemental resistances. Now, you don't have to use Asagis for this. While Usalia is the only unit that can have Murmur of Rage, Comet Disaster can be given to anyone, but the reason for the generic Asagis is that Asagi herself and the maximum generic versions all have 50% star resistance by default, and the 50% from the Sunshine Rod curry brings this up to 99%, which is the cap. And on top of that, Asagi's, generic and unique, benefit from Asagi Fan Club, which has the effect of giving extra stats to Asagis even if they're not in the squad. With 15 units in here, this is plus 30% stats to Asagis, and I can also have them in the Foot Soldier squad for another 20% stats. So they've already got 50% stats just from squads. We've also got Usalia as the leader of this, so you can use squad attack. Unlike the Murmur of Rage video, I won't be able to rely on it because I won't always have Usalia in revenge mode, but it's an option, and so because of that I want at least 225 prisoners in the squad. So yeah, Asagi works well for this because you can get the extra stats just for being an Asagi and the extra star resistance, and I'll explain the purpose of that in a minute. But and yeah, the generic Asagi is one of, if not the best, generic options for this, which is why I'm using her. There are other good options, and probably the best option, though not a generic one, Zeta. Because Zeta also has 50% base star resistance, so he can also reach 99% star resistance with the curry. And his Badass Overlord, when maxed out, gives 100% attack adjustment, which is a huge amount. The trouble with using Zeta for it is you'd have to replace his normal Overload. Though if you want it back later, you can pass the bill to just get it back. And Usalia is being used as a 5th one because Murmur of Rage is really strong. Like, Murmur of Rage is actually stronger than Comet Disaster. Now, something interesting with Comet Disaster, or a couple of things, it's automatically star element, it's always int based, and it technically deals magical damage. Now, a side effect of this is it ignores weapon resistances because it's not a physical attack. It also ignores the Immortal Body unique ability of Horsemen. So, yeah, that's actually kind of handy. Usalia, her Murmur of Rage scales off whichever weapon she's got equipped, so for int monster weapons it'll be int based, for attack monster weapons it's attack based. It's stronger than it's stronger than Comet Disaster, but is affected by weapon resistances. Now, the Asagis have Terror Spells as backup. We're going int based anyway, may as well have the Terror Spells all maxed out. Usalia has Berserk Stream and Pinnacle Meteor if she needs them, and Squad Attack if it comes to it as well. Using staves for extra spell range. Usalia's got an int-based weapon just so that everyone can be buffed with an int buff, so we only need one type of buff to worry about. And one to give that as well is we're going to be next to Christo, who we're mainly using for Tactician, which grants 100% accuracy to adjacent allies and also gives them extra evasion. But the side effect of that, by the way, is that your attacks won't nick. So nicks occur randomly, deal reduced damage, and on top of that, cancel your criticals. Now, we're relying a lot on critical damage and boosting critical damage, so nicking is bad. But Christo also has Superlative Ally, which is his second unique ability. He lends 20% of his int towards the attacking stats of adjacent allies. Now this works regardless of which attacking stats they're using. The description of this is actually kind of bad, but if Christo, when we've got Christo next to people, well, because we want him to have as much int as possible, it's useful to buff Christo and the attackers at the same time, so everyone being int-based works really well for that. Now before I go into the exact setups, well, the ability setups, a few things to note here. Because, unlike Land Decimator, we don't have a 50% accuracy cap, we can guarantee 100% accuracy, so this is reliable. We can always have someone in revenge mode. On top of that, as mentioned before, Comet Disaster deals magical damage, so bypasses weapon resistances, and because it's technically magical damage, it ignores the unique ability of Horseman, so there's actually star resistance is actually the only thing we have to worry about that's going to reduce our damage, so we can actually deal really consistent damage. So this makes it very easy to make sure that things die. And because we're attacking with overloads, we can still use our attacks to finish things off, like the terror spells. And because we don't need to do any special setup in the fight to make it work, other than just deploy the unit and use an overload, we can get away with this. Deploy Christo for the 100% accuracy, deploy someone in revenge mode, wipe the map, done. This can be really fast for the weaker enemies. For stronger enemies, we will want to actually buff them and surround them with support units. But yeah, there are downsides to this. Because we're only getting 20% range mode per map, we need at least 5 units for this, so we need at least 5 strong attacking units. and this requires tricky to get weapons. Like, the Vanquist weapons aren't that hard to get, but they're a bit annoying. Also, because we need 5 strong units, this also means we need 5 maxed out professionals, or we ideally want 5 maxed out professionals. So it's a bit more effort with breeding innocents. And because our main source of map wiping is the overload, and we don't always have one specific unit in revenge mode, meaning we can't always have squad attack active, we don't really have much of a... Like, if we fail to wipe the map and there's too many enemies alive, you don't really have a backup option for wiping the map unless you have more than 5 units, so you can spare, you know, so you can use spare Comet Disasters. Though there is a partial way around this. You could also give a revenge booster weapon to Peta, so that she has her own overload, which allows units to use 2 overloads per map. So you could have Peta as a backup option to allow someone to reuse their overload if it really came to it. Though you could equally just have more Comet Disaster units. Thing to note, it won't work. Peta's thing won't work with Usalia because Murmur of Rage transforms Usalia. And, well, technically it would be possible to wait for the transformation to wear off and Murmur Rage again. You know, if you use Peta to overload twice per map. You can't immediately Murmur of Rage again because transformed Usalia can't use Murmur of Rage, only untransformed. So yeah, there are some downsides to this. But overall, this method has a lot of advantages if you have enough units and have the required weapons. Now, for the abilities, the Asagis all have the same setup. Unstable settings is the unique ability of generic Asagi. We're not relying on this, it does something random every turn. Do be a bit careful. One of the things it can do is give you the Prinny type explosion, so be careful about throwing these units. Now, Elemental Force. This is why we care about star resistance, and why we care about the other resistances. So this is not well phrased, but what it does is, if you use an elemental attack, it adds attack adjustment, which is a boost to attacking stats, whichever ones you use, during damage calcs, equal to your resistance to that element. Being able to reach 99% star resistance means this elemental force will add 99% attack adjustment when using Comet Disaster. So this is a pretty significant boost. Also, Assault Attack, increased damage the further you move. Bullying, increased damage to low level units. This also works if your level is tied, so at level 9999 this works on anything. To the death, increases attack adjustment during revenge mode, but decreases defense adjustment. We're trying not to get hit because we're trying to win in one turn, but do keep in mind this makes you a lot squishier. Unstable Power, 50% extra stats on turn 1, decreases stats 20% every turn after that. Again, we're trying to win on turn 1. These Asagis gain 30% stats from the Asagi fan club just for being Asagis. I'm going to say Asagi a lot in this video. 20% from Foot Soldier Squad, 50% from this. We reach all 100%. Great. You get this from Carol World. And I believe it has to be Demon Lord difficulty or above. Starbreak. Now, this isn't outright required, but I strongly suggest it. Now, essentially, this allows you to bypass star resistance. Now, if you're attacking things that are weak to star, this backfires, but the reason for having this is that if things are strong to star, well, they no longer resist star. It doesn't do anything about Sicily's elemental resist. Like, it doesn't do anything about the fact Sicily takes reduced damage from elemental attacks, but for, well, ordinary enemies, essentially everything has 0 star resistance when you're attacking it, and this means that you really don't care what you're fighting. I mean, it matters what things stats are and how much HP they have, but we're using Comet Disaster. It deals magical damage, so it doesn't get affected by weapon resistances. It doesn't get affected by the immortal body ability of Horseman because it's not physical. And with Starbreak, we don't care about star resistance. Basically, nothing is going to reduce the damage. Nothing's going to resist the damage from this. And the thing is, we're trying to wipe entire maps in one go. We don't care about dealing more damage to the easiest things to kill. What we care about is making sure that everything dies. So what matters is, can we kill the hardest to kill things? And so things that are weak... So yeah, sure, if we're fighting imps that are weak to star resistance, this backfires. But if we're fighting something, you know, some kind of mage that resists star, you know, even 25% resistance, like, not much else is going to boost our damage enough to make up for that, you know. This just makes everything really consistent. This just means we really don't care what we're fighting. Pretty much everything dies just as easily. Genderbender. This is also from Carol World, available on any difficulty, I believe. Now what this does is switches the gender of the unit, so female units become male, male become female. Reason for this on the Asagis, bodyguards, common ability of Gul Lahal. This gives 5% attack adjustment to male units in the same squad. So other than the attacking units, we've got the Foot Soldier squad with the loader units with bodyguards, so all the male units gain loads of attack adjustment, so turning the Asagi's male helps here. So yeah, this is the one sort of downside to using female units for this. This is one of the advantages Zeta would have, that she doesn't need Genderbender. But yeah, the Asagas have so many advantages, it's worth just using one slot for this. Purgatory, increased critical damage. So we're doing guaranteed criticals anyway, this is really good. Mana Scarcity. So this comes from Carol World on overall difficulty or above, or if you already have it, can be spread on that difficulty, and the reason I bring this up, the most reliable way of getting this is in fact as a one-time bonus of In a Dark Demise Destroyer's Beacon. So there is a guaranteed way to obtain this, but once you've got it, you can spread it on overall difficulty or above. So yeah, increases attack adjustment, you gain less mana, not worried about gaining less mana. Critical point, common ability of Petter, you deal more critical damage to things you're not adjacent to. So yeah, critical point boosts critical damage, Purgatory boosts critical damage, criticals deal more damage anyway, Professionals boost critical damage, we're always dealing criticals because we're ranged mode. We don't want our attacks to nick, which is one of the benefits of being next to Christo, because that 100% accuracy also prevents nicks. Now, you might not have DLC, and so if you don't, you might replace Genderbender, because we don't benefit from bodyguards because you don't have bodyguards, so if you don't have Gul Lahal and you don't have critical point, you could instead have Comet Blessing. And this comes from Carol World again, overall difficulty or above. It increases star damage. You could instead use the 10% version from the skill shop by default and the 20% version that also comes from Carol World. You don't have to copy the setup exactly, this is just an example anyway. I do strongly suggest Starbreak though. Just being able to make sure that you pretty much don't care what you're fighting is really nice. I mean, you care about like the actual stats and the HP, but if everything essentially has no resistances to you, that's really useful. And so yeah, let's just to demonstrate, because I want to demonstrate this can be done without DLC, I'm going to load up the non-DLC things. Now, Usalia has the same setup as she had in the Murmur of Rage video, so we don't care about antibody aura really. Precious People, she gains attack adjustment based on how many allies are adjacent to her. It's also worth noting that when she's not being used for overloading, you can magic change her onto someone and they'll benefit from Precious People. Assault attack, same as before. Bullying, same as before. Magic bundle, confusingly phrased. It actually gives attack adjustment, and it does boost overloads as well as attacks and skills. I'm not sure it works with normal attacks, so I have to check that sometime. Unstable power, same as before. To the death, gender bender. Bounty hunter, common ability from Carowald. Should be available on any difficulty. Increases damage dealt to invaders. Unconditional love. Common ability of Artina, so you can get it on her, run her through Carowald, any difficulty to turn into a scroll. Increases attack adjustment, but you don't gain money if you deploy the unit. Purgatory, same as before. Mana Scarcity, same as before. Critical points, same as before. And again, if you don't have DLC, you might replace the critical point and unconditional love with something like Desperation, which gives more attack adjustment but decreases defense adjustment. And you could replace the Gender Bender with Convert Force. So the software says this actually sets your resistances to minus 50%, but gives 25% stats. So 25% stats for one slot's quite nice. Because Usalia's not using Elemental Force, because she's not using Comet Disaster, we don't really care about the minus resistances. We're not trying to go past one turn anyway. This is also from Carowald, and should be available on Demon Lord or above. Now the reason for having, giving her extra stats on the non-DLC version, if you have DLC, you can get Charismatic Novice from a Measle, and this gives 10% stats to adjacent allies, so you can have support units with this around Usalia if you need extra stats. But without that, we have Convert Force. Now, instead of Bounty Hunter, and you could stick this on, and this is also an option for the Asagis as well. You could have... Oops, Eclipse Power. You get this by defeating Carnage Dark, which is also how you get the third extra ability slot. So you permanently steal a very tiny percent of stats from Item Generals, Item Kings, Item Gods, Proto-Dark Death, Invaders, Mystery Room enemies, and outside of Item World, the Overlords of Research Netherworlds. So yeah, if you want to just gain a tiny amount of stats just from stuff you're already doing by wiping Item World stuff, this can be useful. Another thing to consider, and this can be useful on any of them, is... let's find it. Kamikaze. Common ability of Zeroken. Now, the description of this is wrong. You don't want the target to have higher speed, you need to have strictly higher speed than the target, but if you do, this deals double critical damage. Now, I'm not going to count on having higher speed than my enemies here, but if you do, like if you expect to have higher speed, particularly if you have 99 million stats, this is a huge damage boost, basically. Because attack adjustment boosts mainly, well, I think they all stack additively, same for normal damage boosts. The abilities that boost criticals are all multiplicative. Like, this isn't just adding 100% to, you know, 180% or something. Now, this is actually just flat double damage when it works. So yeah, let's pretend we don't have DLC for this purpose. Christo, the unit we really want. He's just got movement gear and again the actual gear. Tactician, already mentioned, gives items and accuracy. Superlative ally, already mentioned. You lend part of your int towards the stats of the attacking stats of adjacent allies during damage calcs. This does mean well, you don't need Christo to be strong, it helps. Like, you do benefit from Christo having extra stats. Now, Angel Song. This is the unique ability of the Celestial Host class and gives attack adjustment to adjacent allies. So we want Christo adjacent to us anyway, so let's make use of this. Evil Eye. Unique ability of Chimera. Decreases stats of enemies on the map by 5%. Now, this can help make sure that enemies have lower speed than you to make Kamikaze work, particularly if you're at 99 million speed. Because this should guarantee that enemies don't have 99 million speed unless they have +% stats from somewhere, or have some way of being immune to debuffs. Curse Dance, unique ability of Sorcerer, so this is DLC, slightly increases the damage enemies take, so let's pretend we don't have DLC. Explorer, Pirate's common ability, 3 stars in Pirate. If you deploy the unit, increases chance of mystery rooms appearing. Violence, gives 50% extra stats, but you earn less experience. At max level, we don't care about the less experience. Common ability of Void. Unstable Power, same as before. Again, this is just more stats on Christo, so that he gives more stats with a superlative ally. And Charismatic Novice, mentioned before, common ability of Ameasle. Let's pretend we don't have that. Now, I'm mostly only going to need to deploy Christo and someone to overload, but occasionally I need some extra damage. So we've got a Professor here with spells at least +4 and staff for increased spell range, including buffs, movement gear, extra gear. Medical Insertion, unique ability of Professor, doubles the power of buffs. So a buff spell at least +4, which gets it to +50% damage, so +50% to a stat. This doubles it to the cap of +100% from a stat buff. Inglesong, Evil Eye, Curse Dance, same as before. Explorer, Charismatic Novice, same as before. Bodyguards, already explained. Now you could instead give Medical Insertion to another unit, such as say Mao, because he's good as a support unit because of Live Experiment. Now this is badly phrased, but basically nearby allies deal 20% more damage, nearby enemies take 20% more, and nearby allies deal 40% more to nearby enemies because they stack. So Inglesong, Medical Insertion, Evil Eye, Explorer, Charismatic Novice. Again, movement gear, staff works just as well in sub-weapon slot for the extra range. So a buffing unit doesn't have to be a Professor, but the Professor has a unique ability anyway. For units where it does matter what the job is, by the way, these are the same support units I had for the Land Decimator video, just minus a lot of the common abilities, because we don't need to help out with Land Decimator here. A maid for Afternoon Tea. So Afternoon Tea, unique skill of a maid, allows the unit to act again. So if we have to use multiple terror spells to clean things up, this will allow us to do so. Also, efficient work. The maid can use an item without using up her turn. Otherwise, Inglesong, same deal as before. Evil Eye, Curse Dance, Explorer, Charismatic Novice. Licensed Caregiver is the 5-star common maid ability. And what this does is items that would normally be used on one unit can be used on 5 in a plus shape. Not really going to be making much use of this, but it's something to keep in mind that you can do that. Equipment wise, same deal, movement gear. A support Sage, multi-attacker, allows your units to attack an extra time, Eclaim attack for 2 turns. This doesn't work with overloads, but does work with terror spells. So if we need to do extra attacks against the boss, this could be useful. Also, same deal with movement gear. Ability wise, won't make use of Mass Blaster. Inglesong, Evil Eye, Curse Dance, so let's pretend we don't have Curse Dance. Charismatic Novice, Explorer, let's pretend we don't have DLC. And yeah, this is the multi-attacker's unique skill of a Sage, so if you want this, this specifically has to be a Sage. This lot are technically, I mean, having the buffer helps. Everyone else mainly is just there to be adjacent to people, but being able to use Afternoon Tea or multi-attack is nice. Something else to consider, if you don't want to have an extra Comet Disaster unit, but you still want a backup option, Petter, like, you also need at least 5, but if you want a backup option in case something goes wrong and you need to overload more, you have Petter, so her overload allows you to use overloads twice per map, except for ones that transform you. The transformation has to wear off first. It is also worth noting that she gives attack adjustment to adjacent Overlord units, so this works with Usalia for when we're using Murmur of Rage. If you did use Zeta as a Comet Disaster unit, this would boost Zeta. So she's another option for being adjacent to people, and again you'd go for a similar setup. And again, movement gear. Okay, so let's just show this in action. I'm going to use an already leveled Axle gear just so that the enemies are as strong as they're going to get, just to show that this doesn't just work on the easy initial enemies, this will work on enemies as strong as they get in the item world. And for the most part, I'm not going to even need to do a full setup. I'm just going to put out Christo, put out an Overload unit, and there goes the map. But for harder enemies, I may need to do a bit more than just that. Okay, we have Invaders. Invaders are a bit stronger. So I'm going to pull out Usalia, Magic Changer onto the Asagi, over the sub-weapon slot so we don't change the weapon type. Is there a good... This'll do. I don't have room to put everyone adjacent, but 3 will have to do. Let's just have the maid ready in case. So, Magic Boost, the Asagi and the Christo, overload the map, and everything goes. I can probably get away without even needing a unit in revenge mode for this. Not quite. Yep, okay, that works. So, the annoying thing about lucky boards is you have to one-shot them. But yeah, sometimes I don't even need one that's in revenge mode. So I can just preserve them in case something goes horribly wrong. Okay, Usalia is ready to do her bit here. Okay, I can't quite get everyone all the way, so... Magic Boost, Overload, and there goes the map. Okay, good thing I don't need to deploy many units here, because the map's quite cramped. Okay. Now, the item general... Now, this is going to be one of the examples where having Starbreak's going to backfire, because I would deal a lot more damage to this, but... Oh well. Let's just see what we can do anyway. Okay, yeah, the general lives. Did anyone else live? I don't think so. That's fine. How far can Quisto move? Didn't even need to deploy everyone there. Simple. So, yeah, if you didn't already notice, that was really quick. Like, if you're strong enough, you can just wipe maps really quickly with this method. So yeah, that's the Comet Disaster method. This is by far my favourite method for wiping maps, and I hope you can see why, because if you don't need to deploy all the other units, the fact that all you need is out goes Quisto, out goes Overload unit, overload, map's gone, done, yeah. It is so fast when it works. But you do need multiple strong units, you do need hard to get weapons, and you also need multiple professionals because of this as well. So it takes more setup than the other methods, but once you can do it, as you saw, it is just really fast, and this is why it's my favourite method. So anyway, I hope this was informative for people, and thank you for watching.